because I don't want them getting obviously too close to Britain or the North American coastline. So we're going to give them patrol zone, I think something like that. Yeah, I think that'll work. Okay. No, I think I like that. And chances are, I mean, what's this distance? That's 1,200 nautical miles. So let's look at the Sverdlovs. What, because these are really the so let's see, what is their range? It doesn't tell me on this page, does it? Nope. Just says what their throttle is. Okay, so let's go ahead and just as a little experiment here. Let's add the Sverdlov. Now, obviously, since this is 1950 and the Sverdlovs actually didn't come into service until 52, I am stretching it a little bit. But what I found was that really none of these Soviet destroyers really has the range um, to really make an effective commerce raider at all. So if we say set go there, let's say you're at a cruise speed. Okay, so 18 knots. It can cruise for pretty much 1 week and 5 days without refueling. Um, I think that's actually going to work for us. That should be perfect. Now, what I'm not too sure about, and then I may actually have to give the patrol mission, as I may actually have to include these two spawn points here as prosecution zones. But no, I like that. Now I'm gonna go back to the start menu, reload the scenario. Okay, so all right. Well, is there patrol points? That back. So this is not going to be for the unused side. This is going to be for the actual. So this should take care of the Soviet mission area. I should, in case you guys haven't noticed, this is actually using the release candidate for version 1.1. So Peer and PortOps are actually in this, and I thought about adding a NATO port somewhere, but it's probably not going to make it in here. Um, I'm also kind of working on maybe trying to set up convoys um, from the U.S. over to France. So at least there's something for the Soviets to attack other than the players' ships. All right, so there's the USSR patrol. There's the Soviet patrol zone. So we'll switch side over to there. And there's their patrol. All right, so let's go ahead and um, switch to unused. Those are points 3 and 4, right? Yeah. So if we switch back to here, I really wish there was a hotkey for the script console because I have a bad habit of closing it. All right, so there's I added the 5 and 6, which are also the two lower points from their spawning zone, and that'll actually add this to their prosecution area. So their actual prosecution area will be 6, 5, 3, and then 4. So that should be a pretty good area to prosecute contacts. So let's go to add mission, and this is going to be a sea control patrol. Um, if I remove those, what's the polygon look like? All right, so there's the polygon. That error is a new one. It's a warning for when you have a polygon that overlaps each other. So the prosecution zone, though, oops. Well, that's not how I wanted this. So 3, There we go. That's a good prosecution zone. So anti-commerce raid. No one-third rule. Investigate contacts outside patrol area. Yes, because we have a prosecution. The ship transit is cruise. Station is cruise. Attack is unspecified. Attack distance. Gonna leave that. I think that's just an override for ship speed of when they'll speed up. I'm gonna leave that unspecified for the time being. I may come back and change that later. Um, it's an active mission. For those that haven't seen it, this is the new mission setup window, obviously. A ton of new stuff here. For those that didn't see my preview video, um, you now have speed and altitude overrides for ships, aircraft, and ships, aircrafts, and submarines all separate. And there's actually a facility speed, which basically means land units. And then if you go under doctrines, you have the withdraw and deploy for ships and subs now. All right, so yeah, I'm not going to mess with any of those at the moment. I'll have to adjust those a little bit. But I think that's the mission. Now, I'm actually wondering if because of no, that should actually work. I think I just put those in the wrong order. I'm actually wondering if I maybe crossed the polygons on my spawning points. Next, I don't know why the 5-inch AA shells have a range of only 1.5 nautical miles. That would be actually be a question for the devs. Okay, so Soviet missions are set up. Save. And then I am going to I'm going to copy the NATO spawning reference points, and just for reference for the player of where they should be looking. All right, so that should kind of let the player know the area they should be patrolling in. Um, and um, actually here, let's go to. I may want to adjust this and bring the NATO spawning points down a little bit. But I think that's going to work for now. I'll do that. I'll mess with those off air. Alright, so what's next on the list? Let's start it on getting the events set up. So let's go to events, create a new event, triggers. This is where I suppose I should set the correct time and date. So let's say 1950. say June 21st. Wednesday the 14th. That'll work. And that is Zulu time. So let's say it's noon 1. And the current scenario time is 1950. Wednesday 1 p.m. This scenario is going to last for 7 days. Complexity and difficulty. I think complexity is pretty low. Difficulty is still to be determined. And let's go back to the event editor. Let's go to triggers. I want a time trigger. So Wednesday at 05. Actually, we'll make it 03. Yeah. So Wednesday, June 14th, 1950 at 1:00:03 p.m. So that's 3 seconds into the scenario. This is basically going to be when the scenario fires its starting event. And how I like to name my events is I like to basically put, if it's a time trigger, I like the date and the time that it goes. That way, kind of, it'll should in theory sort everything. And then we're just going to call this scenario start, and then I like to give it a description of what it does. So at 1300, June 14th, this is the scenario start. So that should be the only trigger I need right now. Let's go to, no, I need actions. So we want a new Lua script. Create new action. And I like to give my events the same, if it's a timed event, I like to say when the time is to trigger. That way I can match up the trigger and the event correctly. So June 14th, 1300. And we're going to call this the NATO and actually, since I have a different script for the UK and the US, so we're going to call this the UK unit spawn. And okay, so what this should do is this should go to the NATO spawn. Make sure that yeah, matches up. All right. So this should take the NATO spawn points 1, 2, 3, 4. Site is X NATO, which is what these guys will eventually be on at the start. And then it'll roll to see which one of the options it gets. I haven't really balanced this script at all yet, so right now there's a 1 in 4 chance you'll get any one of these. Eventually, I may want to weigh this towards a certain event, so I could have if 8 equals 3, 4, and say 5, it would actually have a higher chance of getting option 3. That'll come out in play testing. So there's the UK unit spawn. again, US script is pretty much the same sort of deal. Oh, no, don't delete the clone. All right, so the US unit spawn, and then let's do and there we go for that. Next, right now I'm only planning on this being playable from the NATO side. Um, I don't. I mean, I can do if I did do a version that was playable from the Soviets, I would do it as a separate scenario. All right. Okay. So there's the spawning event, or there's the actions. Now let's go and actually create the event. Create new event. Okay. So there's our one starting event. Next, the reason sorry, I didn't mean to kind of give you a half explanation. The reason I would do a separate scenario is just because I tend to do normally when I do this, um, there may be some scripts and such in mission setup that I just don't want the player to see if they're playing the other side. Um, so that would be the reason I would do a different scenario. Although the fact that I've started using unused sides, um, I might be able to get away with just doing like one combined scenario. I actually haven't tried it. Most of the stuff I've done has just been playable from one side anyway, just for balance reasons. Might have been a longer explanation than you wanted. All right, so that takes care of, I think, the one and only event. Um, like I said, there's really no finesse to the scripting here. It's pretty much rolls a random battleship group at the start and assigns it to a mission, and it's the player's job to go on hunting. I do want to do any some convoys, but I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna work that yet. I tried actually setting up using the new port functions and setting up a ferry mission for ships from like say New York to Brest, but you can't actually assign a ship to a ferry mission, so I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna work that yet. Um, but I think that's probably gonna do. That's really all I had. I had a plan to do, unless you guys really want to watch me continue resetting up units over here. Um, I've actually, when I've gone through this kind of the second time, I've actually been putting these into, or trying to put these into better formations. But like this, I'm not exactly happy with how this formation looks. Um, there's a lot of, I actually did a little bit of research trying to look up like different cruise formations and such like that. And I know for like a carrier battle group, you essentially have all your main units in the center, your carriers, your battleships, and then you have concentric rings of defenses going out to about, I think it's 12 or like 16 nautical miles out from the center of the group. But we don't have enough ships to actually have a full kind of concentric circle like that. So I'm actually pulling a lot of the escorts in closer. But I'm just not too happy with how it looks. Um, like this one over here looks too geometric. I had actually set up a couple of reference point circles that I deleted, and I think I need to spawn a couple more points and kind of mix these or adjust these positions so it doesn't look so symmetrical. But other than that, I think that's going to be about it for today. Um, thanks everybody for joining me. And remember to follow me here on Twitch. I'm also Kushan Gaming on Twitter, and I'm also Kushan Gaming on YouTube. And everybody have a good night. I'll see you next time.